must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Fellow Africans, since 1957, when Ghana gained independence, there has been quite a lot of political, social, economic indicators on the African continent that show that Africa has progressed from pre-independence Africa to post-independence Africa.
Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. From now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
66 years down the road, Africa finds itself with the first country, Ghana, having gained independence. We find ourselves still locked up, controlled, manipulated, instructed, logistically supplied, equipped by foreign powers that dictate our agenda. Africa is endowed with plenty of minerals, resources, good weather. The climate is so favorable for the growth of food enough to sustain us. But we find ourselves in countries where hunger is killing people. Hunger is killing people because most of the people have taken to arms to fight wars, conflicts. Starvation has taken the place of development. In most African countries like Sudan, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Nigeria, in Biafra, and north of Nigeria there is Boko Haram, Somalia in the Horn of East Africa. We have taken to conflict instead of development. Development was the key indicator. When Kwame Nkrumah made the first speech that seek ye African political unity, economic development will come automatically, he was right. The events happening in Libya today vindicates Nkrumah, vindicates Nyerere, Sekou Toure, and Nasser, the founding fathers of our Pan-Africanism. The events happening in Central African Republic, in Congo today, as the war of rebels ranges on between the rebel and the rebels and the government and the rebels, vindicates the founding fathers of this revolution. Our independence, therefore, was only on paper. Our independence, therefore, was only in symbols. Our independence also was in signs. Our independence also was in boundaries. That we received our flags, but we never received full independence as by the word independence. Most of the 3/4 of African countries, French-speaking countries, have their budgets being done in Paris. Is that independence? The Paris government or the French government does its budgets based on how much they will get from African countries. Is that independence? Is this the Africa that you want? Is it the Africa that we must look at? Is it the Africa that we shall leave for the future generation? If the answer to you is yes, then so be it. But if the answer is no, you agree with me that this is not Africa we want to live for the future generation. Our generations and the future generation need to find a legacy. What is the legacy that Africa and African Union will leave for the future generation? The wars ranging in Libya, in South Sudan, in Khartoum, in Mogadishu, in DRC Congo, in Amazonia, in Cameroon, Boko Haram, Mali, Mauritania, the uprisings in Algeria, all point to one thing, that yes, we are not yet independent. We are still controlled by external forces. Thank you.
My name is Bishop Dr. John Warari. I come to you to give you hope. 80% of those who have the infection are recovering. So we must not lose hope. Follow the instructions of the Ministry of Health. Simple instructions. 1, we have been told to sanitize, to clean our hands as often as possible. As you wash your hands, do it for about 20 seconds. That one will keep away and destroy the virus that could have been in your hands. It is important for us not to use our hands in greeting each other. For more information, kindly dial 719 and you will get help, or you can go to your phone and press *719# and you will get more information. Komesha Corona.
Today, thousands and thousands of Africans and many countries in Africa have conflicts. Notably, from Libya, Cameroon, Nigeria, Biafra, and the Boko Haram, to Democratic Republic of Congo, of where we have seen a resurgence of the past military and conflicts coming back in that country. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been displaced, killed, maimed, tortured, raped, several of them dying of hunger, starvation, and other natural causes. The fighting seems not to be ending. For the sake of Libya, the Libyan recognized international government is under siege in Tripoli from another faction recognized by Egypt, France, UAE, and other countries. Whereas the one in Tripoli is recognized by the UN, it has been bombarded, has been strangulated, and many millions of Libyans are dying of hunger, lack of water. The water zone. In Democratic Republic of Congo, we've seen more of active rebel activities returning to the region after some silence has been observed. When we come to Cameroon, we see millions and millions of Amazonians slaughtered. Yet, when you come to Biafra, again millions and hundreds of millions and millions are worried, displaced, tortured by the Buhari regime. Yet again in the north, we see Boko Haram killing, maiming, abducting, and burning down villages in the same Nigeria. When you cross over to Central African Republic, the same is the history that has littered Africa. While all these events are taking shape, Africa is silent. Africa is not making enough efforts to find a solution to what is causing the problems in Libya, in DRC, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, Biafra, and now you add in Khartoum, Sudan. As people die, the people of Africa have no answers, have no solutions. There is nothing to bring an end to the conflicts that have killed Africa. We seem to be new ones manufactured, old ones reignited, encouragement coming from external powers. One power that has been seen in the shadows of all these conflicts, especially the one of Libya, that has escalated in the Sahara region of Africa, is France. When you come to Democratic Republic of Congo, the same country is in the shadows. The war can be seen is France. When you come to Cameroon, in Amazonia, the one behind that has the key to bringing peace is France. Therefore, our question as Africans, why are we silent? Why are we not saying enough is enough of the wars? Thank you.
Bull 7, Busia 5, Muranga, Kilifi, Kajiado, Migori 2. In each of those, Machakos and Muranga County have 1 each. In terms of the sub-counties, Westlands in Nairobi is the lead today with 13, Embakasi with 10, Makadara with 9, Langata 8, Embakasi East and Roysabu have each got 5, while Starehe follows with 4 among other counties that have registered, sub-counties that have registered various numbers. The 27 cases in Mombasa are essentially from Mvita with 16, Kisauni with 6, Nyali with 3. We are delighted to report that we have discharged 40 patients from various hospitals, bringing the total of the recoveries to 1,326. Unfortunately, we have also lost 1 more patient to the disease, bringing the total number of those who have perished and succumbed to this virus to 105. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families and friends during this very difficult period. Fellow Kenyans, today we celebrate the Day of the African Child. Each year, on the 16th of June, the African Union and its member states observe the Day of the African Child as a commemoration of the 16th June 1976 student uprising in Soweto, South Africa, where students who marched in protest against apartheid, inspired education, and were brutally murdered. Yesterday, I spoke at length on the issue of our children's diet and nutrition as part of prevention and promotion of good health in our children, and also as part of building our immunity against this disease, particularly amongst our children. It is important to also address the matters related to treatment and cure of whatever they might get, including COVID-19. To elaborate more on this matter, I have the head Directorate of Preventive and Promotive Health, Dr. Pacifica Onyancha, here with me. She will give details on the ministry's position on child health. And I would like to give her this opportunity to just speak very briefly and explain to you what we are doing as a ministry in terms of pediatric care and our concern for our children. Rest, we think that our attention has been drawn to COVID-19 to the extent that we have forgotten about the other issues. So let me invite you, Daktari, to just speak to that for a minute.
Thank you so much, our CS, for that left behind. To start from where you have left is that as a member of the African Union, the theme for this year's celebration of the Day of the African Child is access to child-friendly justice system in Africa, as adopted by the African Union Executive Council during its 34th ordinary session held on the 7th of August, February last year. The Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the other ministries of Labor and Social Services, has supported various institutions as a way of celebrating this day to give the children institutions child-friendly, to provide menstrual hygiene products as a way of dignifying our girls during this period. As a ministry related to improving child survival, the ministry has continuously implemented high-impact interventions anchored in its policies, strategies, and guidelines. I just want to highlight a few of the high-impact activities that we have been doing even in the middle, in the face of COVID. One of the high-impact intervention is immunization. Immunization coverage has been affected, of course, during this pandemic, but there are ways of mitigating against this. We know that immunization is a very powerful prevention of child diseases such as measles, polio, and the rest. So having realized that immunization is coming down because of the COVID, We have enhanced IPC practices at the child welfare clinics to make sure that the caregivers are assured of their children coming for immunization without having to get the COVID. We have made sure that the scheduling of appointment is in such a way that we avoid crowding, especially in the public facilities. And also, we have made sure that those staffs who are attending the children in these clinics have their temperatures taken every morning to make sure that we remove, and if anybody having a fever or a cough is not allowed to attend to the children. A second high-impact intervention is promotion of exclusive breastfeeding, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the mothers who are exclusively breastfeeding up to 6 months, as it is in the guidelines. In this phase of COVID, I want to encourage mothers, even when you are found to be COVID positive, to continually breastfeed, but make sure that you are putting on, you wear a mask, and then you have minimal contact with the child, meaning that when you are not breastfeeding, it is good for that child to be taken care by somebody else, not to avoid infection. The other thing is actually we have availed child-friendly formulations for treatment of diarrhea and pneumonia, as you heard that we have to also address the issue of treatment and care for those who get sick. Infant mortality rate is one of the high in our country and in Africa as a whole. We have put measures whereby we have people, healthcare workers who have been capacity built to make sure that they provide working, they are given capacity building in managing the newborn units to make sure that the outcome of the sick neonates is good. And also we have scaled up one of our very high impact intervention, Cord Care, that reduces infections during this very fragile time. I just want to make an appeal to the mothers in terms of mask sleep. I'm also saying that health, as our Cabinet Secretary has said, is very key as a form of prevention against not only COVID, but any other disease. And of course, exercises is also recommended. Finally, for those who are taking care of our children, their mental status have to be okay, because if you are not okay, then you are likely not to know how to take care of the children. And therefore, we are requesting that if you feel you need psychosocial support, we have been saying that we have elaborate services to attend to it, and therefore seek help so that you don't injure or affect your child as you take care of them, both the parents and the caregivers. Thank you so much.
Asante sana daktari. Ni kuongeza tu kidogo, niseme ya kwamba wenye mahoteli ambao leo hii tumewaruhusu kuongeza masaa ile wanafanya kazi, wenye mahoteli na wateja wao ni lazima wafuate ile mikakati ambao tumeweka ya kusaidia na kuzuia hii mambo ya ukimwi. Kwa hivyo, sio mambo ya ukimwi wa virusi ya Covid-19. Kwa hivyo sisi tungetimiza ya kwamba wale ambao wanafanya kazi katika hiyo mahoteli, tafadhalini mjaribu sana mfuate hizo sheria, kwa sababu nyinyi ndio mnaweza kuambukiza wale wateja ambao wanakuja hiyo hotelini. Na imefanywa hiyo kitu ni mambo ambayo tumejionea sisi wenyewe. Kama mkikumbuka kidogo, wakati kulikuwa na quarantine mahotelini, kuna hoteli 2 ambazo wafanyikazi wa mahoteli ndio waliumbukiza wale ambao walikuja hiyo quarantine. Kwa hivyo tungependa sana nyinyi ambao tumeruhusu wafanye hiyo kazi, na pia vile vile wenye mahoteli wasaidie sana, wenye mahoteli umsaidie sana wafanyikazi ndio waweze kufika nyumbani, wasije sana tena tukasema waendelee mpaka saa 1:30, alafu kutoka hapo mnawaambia sasa ni kusafisha, kutoka hapo sasa sijui ni kupika ile ya kesho leo, alafu sasa wanachelewa. Wakifika huko barabarani wanakutana na polisi kwa sababu wamevunja sheria. Vile vile Tumefahamishwa ya kwamba kuna watu wanavunja sheria ya kutoka ama kuingia hapa Nairobi bila sababu maalum. Tumejionea sisi wenyewe juzi tulipokuwa kwenye Nyandarua, wakati wa kurudi unaona magari ni mengi sana. Kwa hivyo tunawaomba hao watu wanafanya hiyo kuvunja sheria. Tunawaomba jameni, tunawahimiza nyinyi ndio ambao mtaeneza hii maambukizi ya virusi huko upande wa mashambani. Mkifanya hivyo, tafadhalini tukwamishe hiyo tabia. Vile vile tunaambiwa ati ya kwamba wale ambao wanatoka Nairobi kuelekea Kago, wale wana Kago, ati mnasimamishwa huko na kule, mnalipishwa shilingi 100 kama toll station. Hakuna toll station ya health. Wale ambao wanafanya hiyo vile vile hatua itashukuliwa, na hiyo pesa mtupatie ndio tupate kununua madawa na mambo kama hayo. Lakini mtatupatia mkiwa pahali pengine ambapo sio pazuri sana. So I just want to once again thank Kenyans for following the rules. It is because of this adoption of the new protocols, it is because of the adoption of the new behavior that we are able now to continue opening up the economy. We would not be able to open the restaurants if the restaurant owners and those who work in restaurants were not behaving in a manner that they are. We have not noticed any positive cases because of opening the restaurants, because they are observing the rules. Let me emphasize, bars are not open. Bars are not open. We are talking about the restaurants, so that people can be able to get something to eat, even as they head for home, in the event that that is what they wish to do, and also to give a bit of a lifeline to our restaurants and tourism facilities, because we know that they are going through a very difficult time, and we appreciate the sacrifice that they are making. Asanteni sana.
Okay, good afternoon, Waziri. Just a question. We've recorded 105 cases of corona. Yes? Emmanuel Cho from KTN News. Just a question. We've recorded 105 deaths so far. What are the mortality data of these people? What were the underlying conditions before they died? And number two, the medical practitioners have continued to ask for PPEs. Are they just making noise, or they have the adequate PPEs that they are asking for? That's all. Thank you.
Asante sana. Please, if you know the medical person who is asking for the PPE, please send them to me personally. Because as far as I'm concerned, we have given just about everybody who needs a PPE a PPE. Now let's get it straight. PPEs are not being distributed, just about to everybody everywhere. Even those in the offices here, you're expecting, no, that's not what we are doing. We are giving PPEs to medical health workers who are on the front line and who need them. So if you hear somebody saying that they are not getting PPEs, that is entirely not true. We have enough PPEs in the country, and that's why I'm saying, if you know who specifically, please send them to me, and I'll deal with the issue. All right? And if they tell you that they don't want to talk to me, then tell them, like they say in weddings, forever, let them keep their peace, because it is not true. Now, as far as the 105 people who have succumbed are concerned, we have about 42%.
A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Daytime Express, and the station is Punchline Africa TV, and we are coming to you from the Kenya's capital here in Nairobi. My name is Miriam Ogutu. A very good morning to you, Dr. Matanga. I shall be joining me in a bit as we look at our topic of discussion today, which is some sentiments that the Prime Minister of Britain made a couple of years ago, saying that, colonialism ended a little too early here in Africa. According to him, British Empire should have continued here in Africa. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's Boris Johnson, so I'm not really surprised. So we shall be looking at that also today. Kenya and Djibouti, or rather Kenya, will know its fate because Kenya had been selected or voted for by the African Union to take the slot, the East African slot for the United Nations Security Council non-permanent member, and Djibouti conceded defeat twice, but later on turned and said it also wanted to go for this slot. So today voting is taking place at the United Nations headquarters there in New York. So that is something that we're looking to see how that will go. So thank you so much for joining, and Dr. Matanga shall be joining me in a short bit. First off, let us just look at the Kenyan newspapers this morning, and we start with the Star newspaper. No, before we look at the papers, I think I'd like for us to look at the statistics in regards to the COVID-19 where we stand this morning. Just a few African countries, and then we see the total of Africa, the total of number of confirmed cases in the continent, and we start with Kenya, where the figures continue to go up, and the country has registered 3,860 cases here of COVID-19. The death toll in the country is at 105. Recoveries right now stands at 1,328. Uganda right now also the figures significantly are going up slowly by slowly every day here. And today Uganda total number of confirmed cases is 724. The death toll is 0, and the recoveries there is 351. Zimbabwe also, the numbers are at 391. 4 deaths have been reported in Zimbabwe, and recoveries stands at 62. South Sudan, right now, the figures are at 1,776. 30 deaths have been reported in South Sudan. 58 recoveries are so far. And in Sudan, 7,740 confirmed cases. 477 deaths have been reported there in Sudan, and recoveries stands at 2,820. And Madagascar, and I read Madagascar here for obvious reasons, because they told us they have the solution, and we see the figures there have significantly gone up at right now at 1,312. The death toll is 12, and the recoveries there stands at 417. And I must say their recoveries in Madagascar have really improved compared to a week ago. And in Somalia, the figure stands at 2,658. 88 deaths have been reported in Somalia, and the recoveries there is 649. And Rwanda also, I was shocked to look at these figures this morning because we thought Rwanda had gotten COVID-19 under control, but I think the partial opening of the economy there and lifting some of the restrictions must have led to these numbers going up, not as much as Kenya, but significantly compared to how Rwanda was doing from the start. And so the figures right now stands at 636. 2 deaths have been reported in Rwanda, and of course the recoveries there is at 338 people. In South Africa, cases right now stands at 76,334, and the death toll from South Africa is 1,625, and the recoveries right now stands at 42,063. Burundi also, look at Burundi. The last time they were having that election, the figures were at 42, and then the figures went up to 84, 85, and they stayed there for like a week, and right now they have gone up. And Burundi right now, the total number of confirmed cases is at 104. 1 person has died, 75 others have recovered, so that is a good thing. And Nigeria, the figures right now is at 17,148. 455 people have died, 5,623 others have recovered. So just a bit of that. So let's just look at The total number of confirmed cases in the continent right now stands at 255,427, and the death toll is 6,920. Recovery stands at 116,060. So that's good. Our recoveries there have gone a bit high there, and of course the global cases right now stands over 8.2 million people, and the death toll is 446,135 globally. So that is just a small, of a few countries here in Africa, and of course the global perspective. So thank you so much. So I don't know which country you're watching me from and what are the statistics from where you are. Please share with me, and thank you so much. So now let's just look at the leading newspapers here in Kenya. And as I said there earlier, we start with the Star newspaper. And as we do that, of course, I want to hear, rather, I'm trying to look at the latest in regards to COVID-19, because we have to do that. We have to know what the Ministry of Health is saying. Usually they make very important, announcements every time they come out there to give us the daily briefings there. But yesterday, I think, yes. So on page 2 of the Star newspaper, and here we see that first life-saving COVID-19 drug unveiled in Britain. Medicine reduces the deaths of ventilated patients by third. So that is a new. Something that has been discovered. Now, one of the drugs registered as an essential medicine in Kenya has been found to prevent the deaths of a third of all ventilated COVID-19 patients. Researchers said dexamethasone, an anti-inflammatory medicine, is the first drug in the world to be shown to improve survival against COVID-19 infection. Now, the results came from a study in the United Kingdom where 2,104 COVID-19 patients were given dexamethasone for 10 days and were compared with 4,321 patients who received the usual care alone. It did not help patients who were mildly sick, but reduced the deaths of all ventilated patients by a third. So that is a very good thing, and they're saying that is the same medicine that has been registered here in Kenya as an essential medicine, and it has been. Statistics show that it helps really in reducing, assisting the patients get better there, especially those who are in ventilators. So that's a very good thing. All right. So on the front pages there of the Star newspaper, 92 million are 10 Kenya shillings tenders that could sink Anne Waiguru, and it says controversial contracts that have landed governor in trouble. 19 million Kenya shillings for the upgrading of Kagumo Market, 14.5 million Kenya shillings for the procurement of top-of-the-range Land Cruiser Prado as the governor's official vehicle, 8 million Kenya shillings for the supply of drugs, 50.6 million for Kenya shillings for design, development, installation, and commissioning of integrated hospital and information and management system. I don't know. Well, so these are just some of the things that the, Kirinyaga MCAs said, the things that some of the ills that they're saying, they're alleging Anne Waiguru, the governor there, has, in terms of mismanagement of the funds there. So they're saying because of that, she has to go. Now, just outside of Anne Waiguru, and of course, you see here that she purchased 14.5 million, a top-of-the-range Land Cruiser brand. I don't understand with the Kenyan, because this is not just an Anne Waiguru problem, if at all she did that. I don't know, but they're saying she did. They're claiming she did that, and the matter right now is in the Senate, and it's being debated on, and we'll see the outcome of that. But I don't understand, what is it with our leaders here, our politicians here? Every time somebody gets into office, every term, whether they were there, they've been there as, I don't know, but every time they get elected, what happens here? The first thing they go, I think there's a loan for a car and then for a house. You wonder, before you came here, a lot of them had vehicles, really, and good ones. Why do you have to go and get yourself a vehicle, another vehicle, feeling as though if I purchased this, if I purchased a Range Rover, if I purchased a top of the range, and now that will be befitting to my office. Leadership is not about how big your office is. Leadership is not about what kind of car you're driving. Have you seen the members of parliament? Have you seen the politicians, especially from Europe? You'll find them driving in the metros. You'll find them riding their bicycles to parliament. And it's not a big deal, because they understand when you are a leader, when people have elected you to lead them, they want you to represent them. And leadership, what you drive, where you live, what you wear, that does not define leadership. So I think that is the mark that our leaders here unfortunately miss. They don't understand. So when they're elected into office, like I said, this is not just an Anwar Guru problem. This is a problem that we have with our politicians in this country. I don't know elsewhere in Africa, but we know it happens a lot in this continent. And you wonder why. We continue being how we are, because when we elect these people, instead of somebody going into office and the first thing they do is give me the priority, what matters most to my people? What is the most urgent issues that they would want me to address as their leader? What are some of the things? How are their roads? Some buy these wonderful big vehicles, and when you go to the people they represent there, the areas there, they don't even have good roads. When they go there, they don't even go with these cars, because the roads there are pathetic. So they just have their priorities are just misplaced. So it's just quite unfortunate. So Anwar Guru there, as I said there, that now the Senate has formed an 11-member committee to probe the charges, and a story we shall be following for you there on the front pages there of the Star newspaper. And then still on the Standard, the same thing. So laundry or watchdog, a Senate on trial, shouting and claims of corruption rock Parliament as senators hand Kirinyaga Governor Anwar Guru a lifeline after voting against a full House trial amid reports of backroom deals to save her. Waiguru's fate now lies with 11 senators. And of course, yesterday, if you were watching the proceedings there in Senate, it was something else. And the story is on page 4 and 5, if it will interest you, of the Standard newspaper. Go there and you'll get full story. And we see Kenya's newest open air brothel. What is happening? So it's saying flirting with COVID, truckers and sex workers turn Busia airstrip, where long-distance trucks are packed as drivers undergo COVID-19 tests into a den for illicit affairs. Angry villagers plead with authorities to fence off the facility to save them from the scandal and infection. So now the government is trying to solve another problem, and the same people are trying to create another problem. I hope that the authorities will do something, especially to protect the villagers from around there, so that if you've been asked to wait there for your results, instead of just being there for now 2 days and just minding your own business and making sure that you're safe, you're interacting with people there that you don't even know if they have the disease or not. And if you have it, you shall leave it there, and then this person will go infecting other people in that village. So I think this is very serious, and the authorities over there needs to look at that very, very seriously, because that might see an upsurge of COVID infections in that area in Busia. And how are the I would think an airstrip is a place that has good amount of security. Why are people able to access the airstrip? Why are the villagers able to access the airstrip? Why are they allowed in? I think that is the bigger question, because an airstrip is a place that should have a good, security details there. And also up there, A CBA Shoka on the still up on the Standard newspaper. A CBA Shoka TSC to slash salaries of thousands of teachers next month. Now, Teachers Service Commission opens an audit to identify tutors awarded a pay raise they're not entitled to, and who will be required to refund the extra money paid to them in the last 3 years. What? See, now this is let's just look at that story. On page 9 of the Standard newspaper, and we see what's really happening there with the teachers. Sorry, it was pinned. So it says teachers who irregularly gained from higher salaries in the last 3 years and 54 billion Kenya shillings pay rise will have the additional money recovered starting July 1st. It has emerged that data used to reward some teachers in management positions were not properly captured, leading to overpayment. Those to be affected are senior teachers, deputy head teachers, and the head teachers who were irregularly elevated by those positions during 2017 data captured by TSC county directors. The directors presented the data before the rollout of the 2017-2021 collective bargaining agreement signed between the Commission and the Teachers Union. Now, it has taken the TSC 3 years to note that there has been this abnormality. Come on now. And then if you want these teachers now to return this money back, you know you're not going to get this money back unless you get it from their checks. And you can't, but I mean, I don't know, especially right now when COVID-19 has just turned everybody else's life upside down. I don't know if this will be the right time for TSC to want to recover this money. It might not be very possible there. And so we go to the Daily Nation this morning, and on the front pages, Kenya on brink of world power seat, as I said there earlier. And it continues to say, stubborn competitor for the African seat at the United Nations Security Council. Kenya is competing against Djibouti, a country it beat 3 times at the African Union endorsement vote last year, but which stuck in the race, challenging the validity of the election. So this is a conversation we had yesterday. We also had this conversation the other day, and we have been talking. And of course, today is the D-Day for Kenya. Let me just look at that story, because this is very important. For me especially, I know, but I think this is very important for Kenya because we need to know where we stay. And Kenya is right to, earlier this year, even the government of Kenya was not very happy, especially in the manner that Djibouti was going on about its campaign. And it looked like it was embarking on a smear campaign against Kenya, trying to war votes and support for its bid, and yet Kenya was already endorsed by the African Union 3 times there. So let's just see how that will play out for Kenya today. So on page 5 of the Daily Nation, and it says that Kenya is banking on repeated endorsements by the African Union and Nairobi's own networks to clinch a seat at the United Nations Security Council when a vote comes this evening. Now, the elections for non-permanent seats on the United Nations' most powerful organ were usually routine. Today's will, however, be historic because it will be the first virtual but secret ballot election. It is scheduled for 4 p.m. Nairobi time. So Kenyans, listen, if you did not know the time, this vote will be happening today at 4 p.m. our time. And so in Africa, Kenya will be competing against Djibouti, which it beat 3 times at the African Union endorsement vote last year, but which stuck to the race, challenging the validity of the elections. The winner will sit on the council for the next 2 years from January 2021, taking part in the decisions on global peace and security. So this is a position that is very important for Kenya, and we know Kenya has had this position before, and Djibouti was arguing that it has only been able to have this position 1 time. Kenya has had it twice before, and so this will be the 3rd time Kenya is seeking to have this non-permanent position at the United Nations Security Council. So Djibouti's argument does not even hold any validity because you've had it once and Kenya has had it twice before. I mean, that is not a sufficient grounds now for you to decide because African Union has endorsed Kenya. It doesn't matter. We'll still go and try to get this seat. So this is something that I think Kenyans will be looking forward and seeing how it will play out. All right. And so also coronation threat to expel official. Now, Talai elders feud on coronation of Deputy President William Ruto as Kalenjin spokesperson intensifies with threat to expel Deputy Chairman. Okay, that is interesting. Let's look at that on page 4 of the Daily Nation. And it says, controversy around the Talai Council of Elders has deepened following a decision to expel Vice Chairman Christopher Koyogi. Now, this is after he dismissed the installation of Deputy President William Ruto as the Kalenjin community's kingpin. Addressing journalists yesterday at Kapsisiya, Nandi County, the council's chairman James Basai and the Secretary General Moses Saina said the elders had agreed to kick out Mr. Koyogi for causing disunity among the members and going against the cultural rights of the clan. Okay, so now Mr. Basai disclosed that 22 of 25 council members had backed the move to kick out Mr. Koyogi for tarnishing the image of the clan, which over the years has played a role in crowning and blessing leaders. And so, all right, that is that's quite interesting. So basically, this chairperson, he was not very happy and he was not in agreement over, the installation of Deputy President William Ruto as the Kalenjin community's kingpin. He said, perhaps not. And so the rest of the membership of this Council of Elders, they're saying, oh no, he's out of order, and because majority of the elders there were in support of the installation of Deputy President William Ruto there as the Kalenjin community's kingpin. So, okay. Let's see how that will play out for Deputy President William Ruto, who I might add has been very quiet there. So up there still on the front pages of the Daily Nation, a vicious fight over Waiguru. What at first appeared like a procedural matter to decide whether embattled Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru should face a select committee or the full Senate to defend herself after her county assembly voted to impeach her, turned into a dramatic shouting match between senators allied to President Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga on one side and Deputy President William Ruto on the other. In the end, the House voted to form an 11-member special committee to try the governor. So, okay, I don't know if this will be done in camera or it will be a public hearing. We shall see, but let's see. Also, I know because this year alone we've seen, I think, we've one governor lose their seat, Kiambu governor. So Waiguru, this is not something that I'm sure she's taking very lightly. Chances are she could go or she could stay, depending on how now this committee will decide. So something also very interesting that I saw this morning a few minutes ago on Facebook: Chinese exodus begins. See this one now. We have to read now. On page 8, and it says, the Chinese government will evacuate 400 of its nationals from Kenya, with the first batch of 200 having left yesterday at 11 p.m. over fears of Covid-19. The evacuees procured their tickets on Sunday night, but because of the social distancing rule, all could not fit in the China Southern Airlines plane. Now, the remaining 200 will leave in the course of the week, and we were expecting all of them to leave at once, but considering the social distance rule and the new seating arrangement, they could not leave at once, as said the lawyer Isaac Okenyo. Now, the final arrangement, he said, were made after the Ministry of Foreign Affairs gave the lawyer the go-ahead to evacuate his clients. Now, Mr. Okenyo told the nation that the Chinese had earlier requested their embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to leave the country, but they both declined. So this prompted him to move to the High Court, where he obtained an order directing the Kenyan government to allow them to leave on June 16th, arguing that Kenya's health system does not have the capacity to handle the pandemic. as if we need to remind them where this pandemic came from. I know we are having our struggles here in Kenya, but I don't know. But well, the argument seems to have made enough sense for the High Court to allow them to be evacuated. Well, it's all good. And so the rest of them, 200, I think, will be evacuated soon. So 200 of them, the Chinese embassy seeking to evacuate 400 Chinese back to China. So 200 of them went last night, and 200 are still remaining. And they're saying the reason why they need to go back to China is because Kenya does not have the capacity to handle the pandemic. Oh, wow. I really don't know how to feel about that. All right, but that's okay. So why you need to not mask babies under 2 years in COVID-19 wave? So I think this is very important information here that might help a parent out there. So let me just read a part of it so that we can understand what this instruction, or rather this advice, why it is important. So children under 2 years should never wear masks, and those under 5 should avoid wearing them indoors or in a personal car. During yesterday's press briefing, Dr. Pacifica Onyancha, the Acting Director of Medical Services and Preventative and Promotive Health, said children under 2 years are fragile and it is not recommended that they wear masks. It is not recommended for children under 2 years to wear masks because the masks actually reduce oxygen supply. Okay, so if you put a mask on your child, so basically you are on a suicide mission, you're about to kill your baby. All right, literally. So you're told you cannot do that because they cannot, the respiratory system cannot handle that. So it will reduce the oxygen supply to the baby. So in a recent briefing, the World Health Organization encouraged all people to wear masks where there is a widespread transmission and physical distancing is difficult, such as in public transport. Now, although the number of children who have contracted the virus remains low, they are also at risk of contracting it and should be protected. Dr. Onyancha urged mothers to continue breastfeeding exclusively during the pandemic, but mothers need to make sure they wear masks and have minimal contact with the child. So, in a nutshell, if you don't have to be out there with your child, I don't know why you're carrying a 5-year-old to the supermarket. I see it. Or maybe you don't have somebody to leave them home with. I understand it can be very tricky, but if you really, really don't have to leave the house with your baby, please don't, because we're seeing now wearing a mask is not good for them, but also them walking around exposed like that is even worse. So if you can leave them at home when you're going to the supermarket, when you're going to run some errands, when you're out in public, I think that would be best for them. But you're being advised that putting a mask on children under the age of 5 is tantamount to you trying to allowing them to suffocate, because they can't. That will block the oxygen supply, and the baby might. The situation, the result of that can be very dire, and we don't want that to happen. We already have enough, to deal with, especially during this time of COVID-19. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm waiting for Doctor to come so that we can look at our topic of the day, and our topic of the day is what did we learn from colonialism. And this comes on the backdrop of some sentiments that were made a couple of years ago by the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and he said perhaps colonialism in Africa ended just a bit too early. British should have continued to colonize Africa. I don't know how you feel about that. How do you feel about that? He said that a couple of years ago, and I think for whatever reason, I think because of the wake of Black Lives Matter and justice and all this, and if you've been watching the international media houses, we've seen this the statues of leaders before in Europe especially, and who are involved in any way of supporting racism, colonialism, slavery, and things like that. We've seen the statues being brought down. We've seen that one of Winston Churchill. I think, I don't know if they brought it down already, but we've seen protesters there were asking for it to be brought down. And Winston Churchill really is one of the people who encouraged and celebrated slavery and racism. But maybe back then it was acceptable. But in the world that we're living in right now, that cannot be acceptable. So as we wait for Doctor to join us, I don't know if you'll be able to join us on time because we just have a few minutes to end that. So perhaps what Boris Johnson has said, the racist remarks he's made before, and before he became the politician, Boris Johnson was a journalist. He is a journalist, and he used to write very controversial pieces, and so he has been criticized over his views before, the way he would describe even stories that are Africa related, and it's just disturbing, and to learn that that is the same person that is the Prime Minister of Britain right now, I think says a lot about that society that put him in that position. So Boris Johnson earlier, a couple of years ago, said that colonialism in Africa should never have ended, and downplayed Britain's role in the slave trade. And this was an article that he wrote before he became a prime minister. The prime minister, he wrote, said there he was a journalist. So when he was writing, he said that colonialism should never have ended in Africa, because according to him, colonialism only brought best things here in the continent. So critics are arguing that Mr. Johnson, to explain whether he still holds the views expounded in the 2002 piece, where he argued that Africans would not have grown the right crops for export without British direction, as if we were not eating before these white people came into this continent. I think we had our own life, our way of lives. We had our own traditional foods, which we still have until today. So for him to even say this, but I think he meant that growing crops for export. So he's saying if it wasn't for British coming in and giving the direction and helping out, so Africans would not have grown the right crops. The right crops for who? Because we had our own food. We had our own, vegetables and food that we were eating before these people came here, and that was right for us. In fact, we did not have any cancer problems. We did not have any obesity problems. We do not have all these problems we're having now that we're growing the foods that are acceptable to the other side of the world. So he's saying Africans would not have grown the right crops. All right. And the continent may be a blot, but it is not a blot upon our concerns. He wrote, the problem is not what we were once in charge, but that we are not in charge anymore. So he's saying, hey, what you're talking about colonialism, that is in the past. So right now we're not in charge anymore. So whatever that was in the past, let it just remain there. And that I think has been the problem with Britain, because when you look at even their school curriculum, colonialism is not something that is taught in the British schools, and of course the calls for a better education about the brutality of Britain's rule here in the imperial past come amid new research revealing that more than 4 in 10 Britons view the British Empire as a good thing and colonialism as something to be proud of. So because they're not taught right, so they don't understand that actually Britain was very brutal. And there are a couple of aspects when you look at that happened under the British colonialism here in Africa, and very shameful aspects of that. And one of them is slavery. And I don't know how you would be proud of that if you've had stories over what happened during those days when Africans were being heaped in a ship and taken by force, and others thrown in the sea and things like that. I don't know how as a country you would see it and just be happy, because all of the foundations, a lot of, even in America, even the White House itself was built by slaves, from Africa and across, the world. And so how they would sit there and decide, okay, now that is in the past, we have no interest whatsoever to reconcile with the past, with the future. And so today, this is a new day, and so we're just going to move forward as if nothing ever happened. So one of the things that really happened during those days, and one of the aspects of the British, past, a shameful past rather, they would not even want to talk about, is slavery. And we know that Britain was a key player in the slave trade. That is very important for us to understand. And with almost 500,000 slaves in British colonies by the 1790s, and British ships transported up to 3 million people into slavery in the Americas between 1562 and 1807. So all our people in Haiti, all our people in the Caribbean, all our people in British are the ones who actually facilitated the transportation of slaves from Africa to these other places across the globe, in the Americas and also in Europe. And also the partition, British participated in this, and up to 1 million people died in sectarian violence after the border between, say, India and Pakistan was created in 1947. The divide along religious lines resulted in more than 14 million people. And if you look at the history between India and Pakistan, until today, that divide and rule that was introduced by the British there has not gone away. You can see the acrimony between the two countries, and the killings that continues to go there. And that seed was planted there, the partitioning and the separation and the acrimony between these two countries. That is a seed that was introduced by the British. And we see that continues until today. Those two countries never get along. And they're the same people, by the way, India and Pakistan. And torture, thousands of Kenyans were beaten, we know that, sexually assaulted and raped by the British colonial forces during the Mau Mau uprising in the 1950s, and of course in the 60s, before the culmination of the Kenya's independence. And that resulted to between 20,000 people and 100,000 people or more Kenyans died during the uprising. And in 2013, we saw the British government paying around 20 million pounds to settle claims made by more than 5,000 Mau Mau veterans. And yet they tell us that they came here to just enlighten us. All right, and also something else that was also a very shameful aspect of the British rule here was famine. And we saw up to 29 million died of starvation in India during the British rule, while millions of tons of wheat were exported to Britain. So they will farm, but Britain will take this wheat and take and go feed its people. What a shame. And in 1943, up to 4 million Bengalis starved to death after Winston Churchill diverted food to British soldiers and countries such as Greece, despite there being a famine in Bengal at the time. So that's why that statue of Winston Churchill, that thing should come down, should not be celebrated. And also something else, the concentration camps. Now, more than 100,000 people were imprisoned in camps during the Boer War in the 19th century. Almost 30,000 Boers died in overcrowded camps, as well as unknown numbers of Africa. So we've seen even those concentration camps were here in Kenya. We see the British had them here, and something else also. The British rule across Africa, and indeed other places it also colonized, came with a lot of deaths, massacres. A crowd demonstrating against British rule in Amritsar, India, April 1919, were fired upon by Gurkha soldiers under the orders of Reginald Dyer, and between 379 to 1,000 or more protesters were killed, and another over 1,000 injured within 10 minutes. Can you imagine that? So there's no way. So when you hear, Mr. Johnson thinking that it is okay, that the colonialism was good for Africa, and he says, perhaps the British left a bit too early, they should have stayed. It's just and very interesting. Yesterday I was watching another apartheid, a movie on apartheid of South Africa. I don't know if you've watched the movie Catch a Fire. And when you watch those such true stories, because it was based on a true story, a guy who was forced even to go and start fighting the apartheid regime because of the oppression, because of the inequalities, because of it's just the unfairness. Generally, you are in your country, but you can't breathe, and so they decided enough is enough. We're going to go to Mozambique and then later on to Angola, where they trained and they received support, and they came and they started fighting the Boers there in South Africa. And so we've seen calls, of course, especially for the British curriculum to be revised so that students there are able to learn about their history, because the British curriculum dedicates plenty of attention to the violence of others. When you look at the Nazi, Germany, or during the American Civil War, and goes into great detail on a few events in the medieval and pre-Victorian English history, like the plague, the Great Fire of London, and things like that. But the British school, they don't teach anything to do with the brutality that came or Africa or other parts of the world were under during the British colonialism. So they only taught about other things. They only taught about Hitler and how bad he was and what he did to the Jews and blah, blah, blah. But nothing is mentioned about the brutality of what the British colonialism did, especially here in Africa. So it is such a shame. I don't know if we are able to get through to Doctor, but maybe he will come and we will talk about this topic in depth. But thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Miriam Gutu. Let's meet here at 11 a.m. With, I think, Diplomatic Leaks, where we shall be looking at a divided Africa. It's a shame to our founding fathers, indeed, because if you watch this speech, and please take your time and go look for that, of Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, the founding father of Ghana. And Ghana, we know, was the first African country to get its independence. And, when he was speaking, his vision was not just for Ghana, but his vision was just for a better Africa as a whole. And he said, until all of us are free, then none of us are really free. And so it's very important. So our unity is very important, but we've never been united. And so it's easier for other people to come into the continent and divide us, because we are not very united. And so we shall be looking at that. Thank you so much. My name is Miriam Ogutu. A very good morning.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.